What advice would you give an aspiring investor who's 6 to 12 months behind you?
You know your goals and dreams, so build the foundation now. There's so much content out there that even though you haven't done it, you can start building systems. I think that's very important. Just start building your foundation. And the other thing that I'll add on top of that is, as you're building it, add a ton of value to somebody that is doing what you want to do. What you learn by doing that, even though you're not getting paid, will talk leaps and bounds once you do get a deal, because now you're so much more valuable.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say, is build your foundation and add value to those who are doing what you want to be doing.
Welcome to the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast. I'm your host, Brian Briscoe with Four Oaks Capital. I'm very excited for today's show. It's one of our first deal series episodes, and we have Joe Rinderknecht on the line with us, who recently closed on a 24-unit property in Brigham City, Utah for $2 million. And one interesting thing about this, and we'll get into it later, is they're going to turn the 24-unit property into a 32-unit property. Is that right, Joe?
Yep, 32.
All right, awesome. So Joe, welcome to the show today, and thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Brian. I'm excited to do this.
Yeah, and I'm super excited. I'm excited for every show, and I say that every time, but very excited for this one because Brigham City is a place that I know well. I went to a high school down the road from Brigham, and used to go up to Brigham for a lot of sporting events. So I would imagine that when I drive to this property, it may actually look familiar to me. So that's it.
Very possibly.
Yeah. So that said, Joe, tell us a little about yourself. Give us an idea of your background and your history, and kind of walk us up to how you got into apartment investing.
Yeah, for sure. So, grew up mostly Utah, Idaho. My dad was a Finnish carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I learned a little bit about building. I've done everything in construction that you can think of, but finish trimming was what I learned the most, all
Mm-hmm.
through high school. Kind of interesting. I was going to school to be an X-ray tech, and then had some major life events happen, one of which I'm sure we'll talk about for a second here later. Got into entrepreneurship, building businesses, and then at a time in my life when my wife and I were, interestingly enough, working for my in-laws and living with my in-laws, we decided we had to get out of their house, and we went and bought a duplex and saw the power of passive income and rental income. And since then, that was back in 2016 when we bought that first duplex. We bought a fourplex, flipped a few properties, and now we're working on buying apartment complexes.
Yeah. Now, when you bought that duplex, did you have an idea of the power of real estate and collecting rents and things, or is it just kind of something that was available?
Yeah, we didn't really. I'd had a few mentors through the years that I had talked to about real estate, but they were more wholesalers, fix and flippers. And so I didn't really understand it. We bought this duplex out of need more than anything. And we actually bought like the most expensive duplex that was on the market at the time. But once we got into it, we fixed it up. It increased in value like 30 grand within the first is like 4 months. And we're like, oh, dang, like this is pretty cool. The other thing that was cool about it was we were only paying like $300-400 on our rent or on our mortgage, right? And so we're like, this is really cool. We were living in the basement in like the 1-bed studio and renting out the 3-bed above us.
Nice. So you're receiving rental income from the 3-bedroom part of the duplex above you. You're applying that towards your rent, and you're living for dirt cheap, essentially.
Yeah, it's pretty good being college students.
Yeah, right. I mean, $300 a month. You can't get rents like that almost anywhere in the U.S. right now. So $300 a month. All right, you're college students. You're paying your rent. The price of the place is going up. You're fixing it up. You're making it better. And it sounds like a win-win. So yeah, I mean, awesome. That's a great way of getting in. I know a lot of people have talked about the idea of house hacking, the small multifamily, and another really good example that it actually works well.
I'll just say this may be your next question, but I'll just add to that too, is, we still actually live in that same duplex
Mhm.
just because we have pretty big dreams and goals. And so we're living there right now so that we can, it's going to be funny because we're going to go from a duplex to like kind of our dream house.
Mhm.
The thing that was really cool about that duplex is kind of the power of leverage. I was able to buy my next investment property, a fourplex, with
Mhm.
it from the equity of that duplex. And we now Airbnb the basement out and are grossing like $1,800 a month on it. So that
Wow.
very first property has been extremely instrumental to where we are right now.
So you guys have moved upstairs now and you're in the 3 bedroom. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah, we got more kids. We can't have multiple
yeah,
cribs in the basement.
yeah, it's hard to live with kids in a studio, and I've got 5 kids, so if
Yeah.
I ever broach the subject with my wife of let's buy a little fourplex and rent it out, it's just like, where are we going to put 5 kids in a fourplex? But
Yep.
makes a lot of sense, and you bring up something that's really important is you guys are sacrificing now with living in this duplex to be able to have what you want later, and I think that's a big part
Absolutely.
of being successful in real estate and being successful in investing. You control your expenditures and you invest. And it looks like that's what you're doing. You buy this duplex, you live in it, you live very modestly while you're taking all of your other money and investing it into larger real estate projects.
Yep. Exactly.
All right, awesome. So one thing I want to ask, and I love this question, is I like to talk to everybody about their big burning why, their motivation for what they do. So what is your big burning why? What keeps you in that, 3 unit or that 3 bedroom duplex when you could probably afford something a lot bigger?
Yeah, I've got two very big whys, and I think everybody has a very similar why. It's, family, the freedom of time, the freedom to go do what you want with who you want whenever you want. That's a big one for me. But an even bigger one is I recently created a nonprofit back in 2013, and I won't expound on this a lot, but 2013 I had a major life event. At that time, I was not living the way I should have been living, if you will. I was living by what everybody else wanted me, how everybody else wanted me to live. And I was in a car crash,
Mhm.
lost my little brother and my grandma. And I don't know, the listeners, what religion you are in, but I was given a blessing that I had been given a second chance. And so from that day forward, I changed completely. I decided to live for me.
Mhm.
And my brother was 20 years old at the time. I was 22. And so now I feel that I live for him. And, I've got to make my life even better because he wasn't able to experience it. But my nonprofit is something I'm very passionate about, which is wrapped around the community and the help that we received from people, and portions of the income that I will make on all my deals will
Mhm.
go to my nonprofit to help other families and other people in need that may be going through hard times. So it's very important for me to be successful so that I can help families that need help like I was helped.
I mean, sorry you had to go through that. I love how you're moving forward. I mean, you're using it as your second chance at life to do things better, to do things, the way that you believe they should be done. And kudos to you for starting a nonprofit and giving back. I think that's absolutely amazing. So,
Yeah,
um,
thank you.
wow, that's something I actually, we've talked several times and I didn't know about you. So, yeah, once again, sorry you had to go through that, but you know,
I believe everything happens for a reason, and I know that I have my brother with me still, and
mhm,
I may not be where I am today if it
mhm,
hadn't happened.
yeah,
So it was a major turn of events for me.
yeah. Yeah, well, you're going. Hopefully, you're going in the right direction now, and it sounds like
Oh,
you've
definitely.
righted the ship. So, well, that said, that's probably the best big burning why I've heard in a while. But kind of hard to follow up talking about real estate after that. But we're gonna try. So
Oh, we're gonna do it.
we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
We're gonna do it. So let's talk about this 24 unit that you purchased. First
yeah,
thing I want to do is talk about building the team because I think in a lot of cases you have to have a team to be able to tackle something like this. So who
Absolutely.
was involved in this transaction, and how did you meet these guys, and how did the team come together?
Yeah. So my first partner, his name is Christopher Huffman.
Hmm.
He and I met back in college. So 2014, after I had decided that I was no longer going to become an X-ray tech and
Hmm.
decided to follow my dreams of being an entrepreneur, he and I met in an entrepreneurship club, and he and I and one other gentleman created. Funny enough, we started building like a tech business,
Hmm.
and we had all these little businesses that we were building, and we had built a pretty good team for that, and then just things didn't work out, and so we dissolved the business. But man, we learned so much from that process of building
Hmm.
a few businesses. So he and I have been friends from 2014, and then we both kind of went our separate ways. I went and actually worked on this ranch that's behind me with
Hmm.
my wife, and he started getting into development. Fast forward a few years into 2017, 2018, we met up again at campus and started talking about what each other was doing. I had, bought the duplex, fourplex, and he was doing a development over by Park City.
Hmm.
And we just like, hey, we need to start doing stuff together again because we enjoyed working together earlier on. And I found a duplex. We renovated it, flipped it, and we collectively made like 77 grand on our first duplex flip.
Nice.
And I think it goes back to the part of like you work with people that you know complement your weaknesses, and he had some very good strengths raising money and
Hmm.
construction, and my focus was more on property management, asset management. And, so it was a no-brainer to work with him on this Brigham City
Hmm.
deal. And then my other partner, Dean Ellis, he and I met. We have a local real estate community here called Renatus that we're both a part of, and he and I have been on multiple multifamily masterminds.
Hmm.
And we'd always talked about for 3 4 years. I'd always talked about doing a deal together. And
Hmm.
when Christopher and I we were looking for a guarantor, and he was the first one that came to my mind. So we brought him in, and he brought in just little under half the money, and has been a huge asset to our team and making it very successful. And
Hmm.
I think you gotta go in with people that you trust. And I definitely believe the adage of I'm a team made millionaire, right? I'm
Hmm.
not a self made, and
Yeah.
the team is hugely important. So those are the my two partners.
Yeah, sounds like a similar story getting replayed out. You did a lot of networking. You were involved in masterminds. You were involved in
Yeah.
meetup groups that all had similar people with similar interests. So people with similar interests are coming together. They're talking about entrepreneurship. They're talking about real estate. And after participating in that for a long time, you find somebody who works well with you. You know, Chris and the other gentleman who you guys are now partnered with on this much larger deal. But
Yep.
I love it. I love it. And I think I like how you said team made millionaire, not a self made millionaire, because it absolutely takes a team to get there. I would say that most self made millionaires are probably not self made if you really start, peeling back start peeling the
Oh
onion and
yeah,
looking beneath the surface.
for
Um,
sure.
so let's look at some of the challenges. I mean, we talked about building the team. How did you kind of educate yourself into the business, and talk about some of the other challenges you had, getting started with multifamily career?
Yeah. So I would say that the last deal that I had done
Hmm.
before this property was back in 2018. So I had not bought a property from 2018 to now.
Hmm.
And it's because I had made the decision to go multifamily. At the beginning, Christopher and I, right, we had flipped a few
Hmm.
duplexes. We had started a residential property management company. And we were going to owners and just saying, hey, we can do our best to increase revenue, decrease expenses, maybe rub back some utilities. And, I like property management, so I was passionate about it. And then I was under contract on a 44 unit apartment complex
Hmm.
just near the university. And when I reached out to a commercial property management company, they came back with their budget and were showing me that I could increase my other income, ancillary income by 120 grand a year.
Hmm.
And it just blew my mind as to like, how is that even possible? And, the pretty much the owner, the guy that sent me that has become one of my greatest mentors to date, because I jumped on a phone call and he told me like how this is possible. I didn't end up getting that deal closed, but 2 months later I went to work for that
Hmm.
company because I was like, I have to learn this. Right. So I stopped doing the residential property management, burned that ship completely,
Hmm.
and just went to work. And that's been one of the biggest instrumental events to get me to where I am today, because they threw me in on an 80 unit LIHTC property, section 42, section 8, and it was high delinquency, high vacancy, a lot of drug activity there.
Hmm.
And I never even met the property manager. So it was a trial by fire. But from that experience, I learned how to take a very bad run asset at that time by the
Hmm.
property manager. He just kind of let it go. And we turned it, within 8 months, got rid of all the drugs, we had like one vacancy, less than $1,000 in delinquency. I learned so much from that process. And plus on top of that, I had to do all the governmental
Yeah.
document. So that was one of the biggest things. And I, had underwrote a lot of deals, and that 3 years, I just learned everything that I could. We've talked about, networking. I networked a lot, went to Neil Bawa's boot camps, have gone to a few other boot camps, Rodcliffe,
Hmm.
Adam Adams, learned a lot of talking to people and learning as much as I can so that when that deal came, I was ready. And I think it goes back to just, what your dreams and goals are. So build the foundation now. And, so that when you get that deal, then you're not like, okay, now what do I do?
Hmm. Joe, one thing that I want to bring back up, which I think is really great that you did, you found that new property manager, commercial property manager. You realized that he was like next level good compared to what you were doing. And
Yeah.
you decided to go learn from him. I mean, you took a job with him and you decided to learn from him how to do property management better. All right. How is that translated to what you're doing now with this 24 unit?
Well, the people that taught me, the gal that taught me is now my regional for my
Yeah.
property. So now I'm not going to say they work for me because we work
Hmm.
together. So we are working together to reposition this asset and really truly make this property, its highest and best use.
Hmm.
So they've got a lot of industry knowledge. They run about 10,000 units, so they're very experienced.
Hmm.
And just having that kind of partnership, somebody that like and trust, and you're even friends with, right?
Hmm.
I had a call with Brittany, who's my regional, and her and I have owner conversations that she's told me she's doesn't have owner conversations with anybody else because she just doesn't have that relationship.
Hmm.
So it's been awesome.
Nice. Nice. So you got a lot of relationships built from there, and now they are managing your property, which I think is awesome. So, all
Yeah.
right, let's talk specifically about the deal itself. 24 units. How did you find it? And we'll just hit that. How did you find it?
Yeah. One of my buddies in town, who's an agent, brought it to me. It has been a property that I've known about for a few years because I'm really good friends with the property
Hmm.
manager, the owner of the property management company that was managing it. But when we first looked at it, it didn't make a lot of sense. And then when my buddy Max brought it to me again, we went and looked at it and saw that there was more opportunity than what anybody else was looking at.
Hmm.
And I'll just say, going back to the whole networking thing, one of the biggest things that I'm huge on is the community, right? Teammate, like we talked about. I believe that every stranger is a friend you haven't met yet. And so, Max was one of those people that was instrumental in helping me find this next deal. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So you had this relationship with Max. He brought you the deal, and you said there's something you guys saw about it that nobody else did that made this deal actually work out for you. Can you talk about that
Yep.
a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. when we went in and walked it, like this property had been owned by the same guy for about 10 years.
Mhm,
And he's one of those owners that did not care. He
mhm.
lived in Missouri, probably hadn't seen it in 5 years, right? And
Just
wasn't
collecting
willing to
checks.
put, yep, he's just collecting checks. And it boggles my mind because like that check wasn't that big on a 24 plex. It wasn't necessarily the property management's fault that it was mismanaged, just the owner was not willing to put any money into it.
Mhm,
So you had less than desirable residents in there. There's a few storage units down there where, bums sleeping in the storage units,
mhm,
right? It was so bad. But when we got in there, we saw that it had really good bones. It was built
mhm,
in 1951, really, really solid bones. But these units were huge. Out of the 24 units, 12 of them were 3-bed, 1,300 square feet.
It's a large
And
apartment building.
large
Yeah.
apartments. Yeah, and the
Huge
2 beds
building.
are like 950.
Mhm,
So the current unit mix, there's 4 studios, 8 2-beds that are about 950, and 12 3-beds,
mhm,
right? And then we call them wings. So on each end of the building, there's like a half basement with storage units,
mhm,
right? So we got in there and I was like, okay, these storage units are not being used and these 3 beds are huge. What can we do here? So I checked the zoning, saw that we were not maxed out on, what we could do,
mhm.
or what's the,
Good room to grow.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
And so I contacted the city and said, how many units per acre can we have on this parcel?
Mhm,
And they told us, and we're like, wow, we can add 8 more units. And we're
mhm,
like, this is awesome, because now the 3 bedrooms, so the property is pretty much 2 levels high.
mhm,
It's 2 levels, and we have, the buildings are symmetrical to each other. And so the bottom 3 beds, there's 4 3 beds on the bottom. So we're cutting those in half
mhm,
and making those into 1 bedrooms. And then we're turning the storage units in the half basement into 2 bedrooms.
mhm.
So the cool thing about this, right, is now, I think we talked about this already, but if you're going to do a deal, you're either first or you're last. And
Mhm.
we were definitely last. And when people were looking at it, $2 million for a 24 plex in Brigham City, Utah. I'm sure none of you have heard of it. It's north of Salt Lake. It's a very small town,
Yep.
but it's gentrifying like crazy right now. And so our price per unit changed a lot, going from 24 to 30 units,
Mhm,
32 units, right? And that's where we saw the opportunity. We got under contract. We're going to be putting about 1.3, 1.4 into it,
mhm.
and it's going to be an entirely new property. And we've projected, based on a 6.5 cap, that it'll be worth about 4.5 within the next year. And we think that we can get even more aggressive with that cap rate.
Mhm.
But right, we don't know what's going to happen between now and then with
Yeah.
caps. And so, it could be worth closer
I
to
mean,
5.5.
just to
And
the south of you, I mean, Salt Lake City B class is trading at 5 caps. So
yeah,
obviously this is not Salt Lake City, but A class in Salt Lake City is trading. The first number is 4. Low to mid fours on cap rates, and there's probably B
yeah,
class assets in Salt Lake City that are trading high fours as far as cap rates. So yeah, I think you've got a solid plan there. So you took the
yep,
24 unit, you're converting it to a 32 unit by splitting some of the 3 bedrooms and also by taking advantage of that unused basement space. So now
yep.
it sounds like you're still keeping a handful of the 3 bedrooms, correct?
Yep, yep. So the new unit mix will be 4 studios.
Mhm,
There will be 8 1s, 12 2s,
mhm.
and 8 3s.
Okay. So you actually have a much
So
better mix of units as well. So you adding some more twos and you're adding some more ones, which, most apartment dwellers are looking for 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms. And I know the demographics in Utah are a little different. There are more 3 bedroom apartment renters than there are in other areas of the world. But
we have big families here.
yeah, lots of big families. So, and being Utah
Yeah,
born and raised, I understand that. So,
yeah.
all
And
right.
if,
So
can I add one more thing to this deal
absolutely.
really
Yeah.
quick? So we always say too, when you're looking for a property, you want to find the worst property in the best neighborhood.
Mhm,
If you would have looked at this property 5 years ago, it would have been in the worst neighborhood
mhm,
of Brigham City. Back in World War II, they built a whole bunch of barracks here. And more recently, they're vacant, and a lot of drugs and people that are not supposed to be there doing things they shouldn't be doing. The university came in, bought all of that, and tore down all of them outside
Mhm.
of, this building, which used to also be a part of that. And so now the worst part of Brigham City is now actually becoming one of the best. There's brand new construction going on around us. There's a new golf course. There's newer townhomes surrounding us,
Mhm.
right? So that's the other thing too, is this is definitely a C class asset, that the area is now becoming a B class. It's gentrifying. The universities come in, they're about to build a lot more. So I think having a really good idea of like that path of progress,
Yeah.
I would say outside of splitting units, that's the next thing that's really going to help us, is we're going to have natural appreciation just with the development that's going around us, and what the university is going to be doing sooner than later.
Yeah, and there's a lot of, so you saw the writing on the wall, you saw the area getting better, and two parts of your value add. Part number one of the value add was just adding new units, but you also said part number two of the value add is basically moving it from a C class asset to a B class asset. So that means
Yep.
nicer finishes, some more amenities, and everything else that goes along with it. And the area supports it. In order to go from C class to B class, the area supports it. You saw a lot of
Yep.
opportunity with the area itself getting better, the neighborhood getting better, and with some very large units and unused space. Took advantage of both together, and now you're going to add. You bought for 2 million, and it's going to be worth more than twice that once you're done. So
Yep.
I think this sounds like an amazing deal. But let's talk real quick about financing, and then we're almost out of time. Give us the brief rundown of how you finance the property.
Yep. So we got pretty much just a bridge loan
Mhm.
on it, where we're putting about 1.3, 1.4 into it. We didn't get a straight up 75% loan to cost because it was kind of a hairy deal.
Mhm.
As we've talked about, right?
Yep.
We're gonna have 100% turnover. There's not going to be any of the residents still there once we're done with it.
Mhm.
Luckily, there's two buildings, so we're renovating one building at a time. But we got a loan for, I believe it was 2.76 is what I told you, right, Brian?
Mhm. Yep,
And
276.
yep, so we raised about 1.25 million for it.
Mhm.
That includes, our acquisition fee and everything. The lender we went with, Bonneville Capital here in Utah, is a really, really good broker. They got us what we felt were really good terms. We got
Mhm.
5% interest rate, and I think we just got a 12-month term. But it was really good based on what Christopher had got on his last deal, and we'll work with them to get us a refinance in 12 to 16 months.
Nice, nice. And the exit plan for you, therefore, is you're going to refinance, you're going to hold this long term, or what's the plan?
Yes, definitely. So we'll
Mhm.
refinance it, right, in 12 to 18 months. And yeah, I really like cash flow,
Mhm.
and I see what's happening in this area. Right now, our business plan is 7 years,
Mhm.
but I would like to see what's even going on and to hold it for maybe 10 plus years, because I think that this property has nowhere to go but up, even if there is a downturn,
Yeah.
just with the amount of land that's around us that's still developable, and with what the university has planned. And as we know, right, California is moving to Nevada, Nevada's moving into Utah, and Utah, everything's heading north along I-15. So we might see Brigham turn into a much larger city in the coming years.
Yeah, and I mean, I've talked about this a lot before, but I mean, Salt Lake City has pretty much filled out the valley that it's in. Just north of Salt Lake
Yep.
City, you have Ogden, and it's pretty much filled out the valley that it's in. And the next
Yep.
spot north, just north of that Willard Bay area, is Brigham. And so, where are people going to be moving to? When Salt Lake City's full and Ogden's full, it's going to be up to Brigham. So.
Yep.
I think that is definitely path of progress, and next 10 to 15 years, I expect to see Brigham grow tremendously. So the nice thing is when I move in about a month, I'm going to be about a 2 hour drive from there. So we'll
Yep.
see what happens. But
Have to
all
do
right,
some deals together.
yeah, we're gonna have to absolutely. Hey Joe, so what's next for you?
Going to continue building my foundation
Mhm.
and grow. I really want to continue buying more assets. This property has taught me that it's good to have people that you trust and to have systems, right? You can't scale unless you have systems in place, people in place to be able to go and buy more.
Yep.
So that's what it is for me, is building more systems, bringing more people into my life to be able to scale and grow.
All right. And next question, what advice would you give an aspiring investor who's 6 to 12 months behind you?
I think from what I talked about earlier is that quote that I mentioned, you know, your goals and dreams, so build the foundation now.
Hmm.
Um, you know, there's so much content out there that even though you haven't done it, you can start building systems. I think that's very important. Just start building your foundation. And the other thing that I'll add on top of that is, as you're building it, add a ton of value to somebody that is doing what you want to do. A few things that I had mentioned, you know, between now and then outside of property management is I worked with a group, a big multifamily group, as a cold caller because
Hmm.
I wanted to learn how to better talk to sellers. I was an underwriter for another multifamily group. You know, I didn't get paid much. I didn't get paid on anything on some of them because they didn't get a deal closed. But what you learn by doing that, even though you're not getting paid, will talk leaps and bounds once you do get a deal, because now you're so much more valuable. So that's what I would say, is build your foundation and add value to those who are doing what you want to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, just like any project, any construction project, building a house, building an apartment building, that foundation has to be solid, and you build it first. So I love the analogy, and I love how that plays out. All right, last question: how can listeners learn
Yeah.
more about you?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn. I, as of now, don't do a whole bunch of social media marketing. I haven't really done anything with website or anything like that. But the best place would be Facebook,
All right.
and you know, I can give you my contact information as well.
All right, sounds good. Well, put your contact information, what you're willing to give out, in the show notes. So anybody looking to get to him will have a link to his Facebook page, link to LinkedIn because you mentioned that one, and then
Yep,
send me over the contact information you want in the show notes, and we'll make sure that gets in there.
awesome. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, Brian. I'm
Yeah.
really excited and happy that I got to do this with you.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for coming on, and look forward to meeting you face to face here soon.